All right, we are live.
Welcome to today's Politics and Tactics. First, we want to acknowledge fire engineering's founding, November 7th, 1887. You see, the name of the publication has changed over the years, but the purpose has remained largely the same, to be devoted to the interests of the fire service. And while there are many fire chiefs, there's only one editor-in-chief of fire engineering, and we are thankful to have Bobby Halton join us today. This show is about finding motivation and motivating the unmotivated. This often involves showing them the light through training and advocacy. But first, we're going to start with an important update. And it's one thing to throw rocks, but when credit needs to be given, we should give credit. This platform, we platformed Mark Fitch's great investigative journalism, and we brought to light an alleged scheme hidden in plain sight regarding payments from MDA's Fill the Boot campaign through the back door to IFF's coffers, ranging each year from over $900,000 to $1.4 million. These payments received no press releases, no mention on IFF's website or MDA's website, or any of the fanfare that would generally come from a proper transfer of such a large payment. To make matters worse, local presidents and the rank and file who dodged traffic, boot in hand, unknowingly lied to the public, stating that all the money went to sick kids and research to benefit those stricken with this horrible, debilitating disease, and that the funds went directly to the MDA charity. 3 individuals who were running for general president and secretary treasurer of the IFF had the courage to take a position against these payments on this very show. And while they did not cross the finish line, they added to the policy debate, bringing critical issues to light and helped create positive policy pressure for change. On fire engineering's birthday, the IFF filed an LM2 report with the Department of Labor indicating that these suspect funds were no longer being received in the last year. The IFF made no official announcement that they are no longer sticking their hand in the boot to grab funds that were supposed to go to research and sick kids. However, this change of course should be acknowledged as a step in the right direction for the IFF, and it should be celebrated. This also demonstrates the value of speaking up and taking positions even when we don't succeed in our personal requests. Transparency is the greatest disinfectant, and at very least, it shines a light on who the rats are. And now we have 2 great guests. First, FDIC instructor who will be back with us next year and host of the Scrap, Battalion Chief Corley Moore from the Moore Fire Department in Oklahoma. And firefighter Josh Miller, assigned to New Haven's Rescue Company 1. He is the owner of Northeast Squad Concepts, a former DC firefighter, a member of Hyattsville Volunteer Fire Departments in Maryland. I've had the honor to go to fires with him. I've also had the honor of representing him before the chief's office.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That was very helpful, Frank.
We will cover, and we have to mention before we get right into this great conversation is that our host, P.J. Norwood, our co-host, right now is recovering from surgery. And he gave a kidney to one of his daughter's previous softball coaches. So talk about something so unselfish and something brave and heroic to donate your kidney, not even to a family member, but to somebody in need. I mean, I just talked to him and I said, PJ, if you wanted people to think you were a good person, you could have just posted a flag of Ukraine on your profile and it would have been all good. But no, seriously, truly heroic. And Bobby was telling me about his own story with a family member. So with no further ado, let's introduce Bobby and then let's start talking to our guests. You're on mute, boss.
Yeah, I just had the old guy thing there, trying to move my finger on that slidey thingy, whatever. But good to see my old friend Corley and Josh. Good to see you guys.
Absolutely.
And, you know, very few guys have a fire department, their own fire department, but Moore Fire Department in Oklahoma, owned by Corley Moore. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I like the story. We'll just keep pushing that one.
Right. There's a halt in Canada And there's a Halton Hills Fire Department, Halton Police. And whenever I go up there, I write checks. And
Right
people
on.
look at the check like, seriously? I'm like, dude,
I own it.
Right. I own it. It's mine, baby. It's mine. But great to have you guys on. Awesome day before Thanksgiving. Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. And it shows the level of motivation that you have for sharing and doing what you do. And I've been honored to be a guest on the scrap myself. I think I was early on in the scrap development. It was pretty. Corley shows up at my office, knocks on the door, and says, "Hey, I'm like, dude, I'm in. And if you want to see some awesome merchandise, go to it's Firehouse Vigilance, right, Corley?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Firehousevigilance.com. Corley's got the one I like the best is Luck Work. That's like the best ever. My kid freaking stole the shirt and the hat from me.
Nice.
And my kid's like you guys' age. He's like 35 or 36. And so like right away he said, no, that's too cool for you, Dad. You know, I'll have to appropriate that. And he did, and he loves it. So if you want to get some cool merchandise, Corley's got some really cool merchandise on there, and he does a great show. A lot of my dear friends have been on with Corley. Frank, just so you know, it was November 17th, not November 7th, but you were close.
Oh, that was my dyslexia getting the best of me.
So yeah, so November 17th, and the original, yeah, right. I'm an editor. I got to correct shit, right?
Yes,
So,
I need correction. I need correction. There's no doubt about that. So there's nothing wrong with being corrected.
That is fantastic. I love when Frank is wrong.
and there it is, guys.
Wow.
Awesome. How do we see that?
That's the.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes,
That's amazing.
that is.
And so it's sold. When it's sold, it was $2 a year or 5 cents for an edition.
Oh my
And
God.
here's an actual 1877 nickel.
Wow.
So
Wow, that's
you
kind
could
of
have bought it, but
That's awesome.
the subscriptions back then were $2 for the year. And how do you beat $2 for the year, right?
No
Now
doubt.
it's $2 a page.
Hey.
No, I wasn't talking about fire engineering. I'm just saying in general.
But close, but close. Hey, we got to pay. You try buying anything for $2 these days, right?
No doubt.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's
Not even a
unbelievable.
gallon of gas.
I had to pay Corley $200 just to get on his show, Josh. I mean, I thought it was getting it under the wire.
Frank,
So-
where's my payment?
Yeah, right. And my kid's sister did the same thing that PJ's doing. She donated. I'm like, man, that's pretty awesome. Nobody would want mine. I offered it to go. They were like, yeah, no. Too many hard miles, man.
A lot of miles on the chassis.
I had a rough paper route. So, hey, without any further ado, FDIC is coming up. If you want to see Corley, please, sign up now. You guys know rooms go fast. Please don't wait. There's nothing I can do for you in April. If you show up and say, hey, Chief, can you help me get a room somewhere? The answer is like, no. You got to go through housing. And even then it's like, people love the show, and that's a good thing. It's a good show. And there's lots of great shows out there. I'm not saying we're any better than anybody else's. There's a gazillion great shows out there, and support them all. Support as many as you can. You know what I mean? And because they're all doing really, really great work. And every show kind of has a different flavor, right? Like, some of them are a lot more personal and one-on-one. Some of them are gigantic, and you just keep bumping into everybody and everybody else. So, it doesn't make anybody better or anybody worse. We're all doing this. To quote the great American philosopher John Salka, it's a big fire service.
Right on.
Amen. Right.
Amen.
So there we go. So without any further ado, let's talk about motivation. Let's talk about you guys, and let's see where it's going.
Well, let's start off with this, Bobby. So I was reading a leadership book the other day, and I was kind of a little disappointed when it came to the motivation thing, because the book talked about motivating the very best, looking forward to who has potential. And I kind of go back to a battalion chief in Wallingford, Chris Sunwall, who told me, listen, anybody can motivate the guy or girl that really wants to go get it and be better. You got to touch your base with those people. You got to make sure that they're on the right track and support them. But if you're the boss, that's not who you mentor. So I kind of break it down like this. if it's somebody outside of your shift or your department that you're trying to mentor and build up, look for the very best. But if it's someone in your department and on your shift where you're the leader, you need to get that person that's in the margin motivated. And I'll take it to last FDIC, which I truly believe is the best show in the fire service, without a doubt. But Chief John Austin from New Haven got a bunch of guys from New Haven to come out to FDIC. And usually you see the same motivated, like hard chargers out there. Well, I saw two individuals that are great guys, but I never viewed them as like motivated. And as they took the classes in FDIC, as they talked to people, you could kind of see that spark, like that light bulb that went off in their eyes. And I was like, this is what FDIC should be about. If we can get some chiefs to bring the guys that are there and girls that are there, but also look, maybe that's somebody who's in the margin that we could just, if we motivate them a little bit and reach out, we can turn that light bulb on. I'll start with Corey and then we'll move to Josh and then back to Bobby. Corey, kind of weigh in on your thoughts.
Oh man, I think you hit it out of the park when you say it's easy to lead the motivated and the hard chargers, man. That's the dream. What do you do with the less than stellar? And they're not bad people. It's not as motivated, not as into the job, maybe in a different season in their life. And motivation, I firmly believe, is 100% intrinsic. It comes from within, and you can't order someone to be motivated. You can order them to do a task, but you can't order them to care about doing the task. And so, with that being said, you got to look for other levers to pull to try and see what you can accomplish, especially when they're under your charge. Like you said, there's a difference between going out and finding someone to mentor and then someone that is under your charge. Your responsibility, like whether they come home from that next call, is on you to get them to be competent enough to perform at that level that might be required from them when those tones drop. And you got to look for those other levers to pull. And so, for me, a lot of it comes down to relationships, investing time in them, and really focusing in your span of control to make that happen, because you only have so much time in the day. And if you try to invest in everyone equally, man, you will be stretched thin. So, but no, finding those other levers to pull so that they can be motivated from within. And that really comes from getting to know them and what drives them and their passions, and that takes time.
Josh, as a firefighter, weigh in on this, on what your role is.
I mean, usually a free t-shirt and a sticker motivates me, but no, I'll say that I think that it comes down to the person individually. I think you guys all hit the nail on the head. Like, there's certain people that, you can motivate, certain levers you have to pull, but I think that there's certain people that, respond to different things. So I think if you treat each person a little bit differently, right, depending on how I think really like being a fireman, it's not just like the art of being a fireman. It's like, it's the art of reading people too, right? It's not just the art of reading smoke. It's the art of reading people. We have to know who we're working with, and we have to know, what gets them going. I as a fireman, like I drive the rescue, I have guys on the back, and, sometimes I have, there's specifically an individual that's very hard to motivate. And the only way that he really can be motivated is when he sees other people doing the task. And I think that that's really important. You have to you got to lead by example. You have to, hey, check the rig out. You got to make sure everything's good to go. Have them follow you, and I think it just becomes infectious. I think, and I think that's how that motivation builds. They see you doing it. They're like, oh man, this guy's doing, and you throw a little competitiveness in there too. You get a little competitive with it. Hey, oh wait, you can't tie that knot. You can't stretch that line, whatever it might be. And it motivates them kind of to the next level, I think. That makes any sense. But I think that's definitely part of it. And again, I think that there's also a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of people that will get in other individuals' minds and kind of, in a sense, like say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't do, they're coming from the outside. It's like, no, don't listen to that person. Do, what is the right thing. Do what is what needs to be done. Don't worry about that noise, don't worry about that. Let's like for example, what Frank's saying about the people that came out to FDIC, right? People that came out to FDIC, they're probably, they probably got friends that go, oh man, that's dumb. Don't do it. Don't do that. But they went out there and they were like, holy crap, this stuff is awesome. This is why I became a fireman, and, awesome. Just good.
Bobby?
I should introduce my co-host, Izzy. She always makes a cameo. It's my golden. I've got a Shiba Inu who'll show up in a few minutes too.
Nice.
He's a character. But to echo what both Corley and Josh just mentioned, the other thing to remember too is that, like, I always like great guitar players or great singers, and I've tried playing. I can do G, C, and D, and that's about it. And it just wasn't my strength. And obviously, I'm not a singer. You know, duh. So, but I really, really admire the folks that can do it. Doesn't mean I couldn't, you know, hum along a melody or something in a backup or whatever. So when we think about like motivating folks, part of what a really good boss does or a good crewmate, find out where that person's got some skill, some talent. You know what I mean? Find out, you know, maybe they're really good at tech rescue, or they're really good at, you know, water flow, or they're really good at extrication, or they're really good. And you know what? Let them play to their strengths, and then other stuff can grow from it, right? A little win every day, a little win, another little win. You just keep checking off wins every day, right? And I think that, you know, not everybody's the whole package. Nobody's the whole package. I mean, I can't tie a knot, flat out can't tie a knot. I'll go over the side of any building if you tie me off, but if I tie me off, I'm gonna be scared to death, you know? And there's other cats that can do that really well, so let them do it. And I think the other really kind of interesting thing when we're talking about motivation, people always ask me, well, you know, why do you have like 8 guys doing engine company? Why do you have 11 people teaching truck? Why do you have 6 extrication classes? Because a gal in Corley's class might not like Corley or Bobby, but she might find Josh, or maybe not like isn't the right word, but maybe the way Josh presents it, different language, different approach, different body styles, whatever, catches their attention, gets them, right? You know, hey, there's your co-star.
Yeah.
Who else?
That's Harpo. He's my deaf boxer we rescued earlier this year.
Yeah, Izzy's a rescue too. So is
Awesome.
so is Oki. Our little Shiba's called Oki.
Right on.
A guy in Oklahoma with a dog named Oakley. Could go figure, right? But
Right
you know what
on.
Oki means in Japanese? Tall. He came from Boston with that name. Oki in
Nice.
Japanese means tall. So anyway, you know, finding what motivates somebody is sometimes finding the person that they connect with, and that could be, you know, all over the place, right? And I think what people screw up is they think, well, if I want to connect with you know, a person who, I guess, what do they call them now, Gen whatever the hell, you know, which I think is bullshit. I think that all firefighters come equipped with the same like set of principles, motivations, and quote unquote virtues, not values, virtues. Let's call them what they really are. They're virtues. A value is like what you put on something. It's not a virtue. So I think if you're my age, if you're approaching 70, or if you're 19, if you have the same virtues and principles in your heart, you'll make a great firefighter. You know, and I don't care what generation you are, and you'll speak the same language. You know, just because they grew up with an iPad doesn't make them different than the guy like me that grew up with a yellow tablet. You know what I mean? I think it's about that. But when people say, oh, we got to get, you know, 21-year-olds to teach 21-year-olds, I think that's a mistake.
I think you're 100% right. Go ahead, Josh.
I'd say, Bobby, there's one thing that you really just said that kind of stuck with me, and it's like letting guys in their lane stay in their lane, like teach them what they know, and almost use that as a motivational skill. So, for example, I have a guy on my shift, and he's, you know, real good fireman, awesome. But he gets, and it's always like 98%. He's like phenomenal. The last 2%, though, he starts second guessing himself, you know. But he's very, very good. He's really good guy, really good fireman, really squared away, and he's really good with structural collapse, things like that. So we let him teach. We say, hey, why don't you do a shoring class? Teach a shoring class. He did the shoring class, and it was phenomenal, and it gave him that extra confidence and that extra motivation to lead him on to whatever the next step it was that we were doing, but it gave him that little bit extra. And I just think that like when you said that, I was like, oh, I had that same thing happen the other day, you know? So.
And a lot of motivating somebody is just finding what gets you into the door. And I think, you know, I sent Josh to go meet one of the guys who really mentored me. He had no rank, and that's the thing. You don't need to be a leader to have rank. At the time, John Kay, who's a sergeant in Detroit, and I sent Josh there, and I said, this would be a great firehouse for you to visit while you're in Detroit. Make sure you're knocking with your elbows. So why don't you tell him how you broke down the barrier and got the shift to kind of embrace you? And
so I think that no matter where you go, no matter what you do, right, you got to leave your mark. Somehow you got to leave your mark, whatever it is. So I'm out there. I'm with my friend Dave. He's a fireman in the Bronx at Squad 61. I've been friends with him my whole life. We always do just dumb stuff together. But we're like, let's go out to Detroit. I'm going out to Detroit. I say, Frank, do you know anybody out there? He goes, oh yeah, my best friend John Kay. I know. Within 10 minutes, John Kay's calling me. John Kay's going, where are you going? What are you doing? You got to go here. Got to go there. All right, no problem. So we go to this one firehouse, right? Before we go to the firehouse, though, I say to my boy Dave, I say, hey, Dave, I say, we got to get something to bring to this firehouse, and we got to make our mark. So we end up in like this little bodega in like, I don't know, wherever we were in Detroit. And we got them like fresh made, the chicharrones, the pork. We got like the fresh made chicharrones. And then as we're walking out, I see this giant piñata. This massive, massive piñata of a Chihuahua. I go, we're buying that and I'm bringing it. And he goes, what the hell are you going to do with that shit? I said, Dave, when we walk in this firehouse with chicharron and a Chihuahua, they will never forget us. He goes, you're absolutely right. So we walked in, I had the chicharrones and the Chihuahua, and the guys are looking at me and they're like, who the hell is this? And after that, they just it broke the ice. They loved it. And we were in, right? So the first night we rode along, I remember the next morning, we stayed there for the night. The next morning, we come downstairs, and I'll never forget. The boss says to me, he goes, what do you guys want to do today? Do you guys want to take pictures? Do you want to ride along? Do you want to go to work? We were like, go to work, please. So immediately he's like, yeah, get on the rig. We get any fires? And we went with them to a couple fires that night. And it was just great. It was just great spending time with these guys and guys. And it was just another night in Detroit. I'll never forget. We're walking down the street, and I see this 2.5 frame just ripping, and it's to my right hand side, like a block over, and then ahead of me I see another 2.5 frame, and it's just ripping, and I'm like this, like Oreo eyes, like a kid in Fire 1 that just went through the flashover simulator. And I'm walking down the street, the guy turns around, looks at me, and he goes, welcome to Detroit. I was like, these guys, they're great. So but just spending the time with those guys and going out there and just learning from them. I learned quite a bit from them, and it was just very interesting seeing the way that they do things. And it was just a great time. And it was really us just, spending time with other like-minded individuals. And I think as far as motivation goes, you got to spend time with like-minded individuals. If you spend time with people that don't care, you're not going to care. If you spend time with people that love the job the way you love the job, I think that's gonna motivate you. That's gonna bring you to the next level.
Corey, how do you create buy-in with your crews?
Man, I think Bobby and Josh both really hit on a very, very important element, which is that identifying and knowing your people. Because Bobby was talking about who's passionate about what. You don't know that unless you get to know them. And Josh the same way. Everybody's different, and it really does come down to those relationships. I don't want to be a broken record, but when you know your people, then that's really where you can get it to where you don't really motivate them, they motivate themselves, and you enable it. You empower it to happen, and you give them the tools, the ability, and the time to make it happen, where the ownership becomes part of the process. Especially when it comes to fitness tactics, repetitions on the training ground and things like that. The more that you can tap into their passion, almost hit your wagon to their passion horse and let them pull you to success. And it's super, especially if you can empower them to take ownership of it, and then they almost take the lead. And so that to me is the key. But everybody's at different points in their life. Sometimes you catch someone really in a valley, and that's a much harder row to hoe. And it really is about identifying which those buttons you can push.
And to Corley's point, you got to respect that. Like we've all been through crap, there's an old joke about a guy who talking to God and complaining about all the crap God's put on his shoulders. And he says, I'd like to have Josh's life. And he shows him Josh's life. And he says, oh, hell no, I can't handle that. I'd like to have Corey's life. And shows him Corey's life. And he says, oh no, I could never handle that. And shows him Frank, I'd like to have Frank's life. And he shows him Frank's got, no, I could never handle that. And God says, let me show you this dude. And he shows him this guy he doesn't recognize. And God says, he's going, oh, I can handle that. And he goes, good, because that's you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all of our lives have like these ebbs and flows, right? Like if you got a sick kid at home, you know, or you're dealing with a parent that's dying, or you're dealing with, you know, you're sick yourself, or your marriage is going to shit, or you're getting sober, or any of that kind of stuff, right? Man, you gotta know when to, you know, back off. You know what I mean? You got to know when to give folks space, because just because they're not, you know, excited about going to FDIC, or oh, the, you know, the magazine just got here today, man, let's all talk about it, and they're like, no, you know what, I'd like to just be by myself for a, you know, sometimes people have like really good reasons to put other things first, and we love the job, but I love my wife and my kids and God a lot more, and that's okay. You know what I mean? When I retire, I'm not going to sleep with you guys. You know what I mean? God forbid. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, I'm just saying we could be a Bitcoin guy and be sleeping with each other in a mansion in the Bahamas. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, and it's interesting too, because nowadays, I think when we talk about motivation, it's important to remember you can demotivate people too.
Mm.
You know, you can try jamming stuff up people's rear ends, and all that does is they push back. They're like, you know what I mean? Like, open the door. If they want to walk through, just leave it open. You know what I mean? But if you tell them they got to go through it right now, you know, we're Americans. We'll say, screw you. We wake up every morning, want to have a little revolution. So, you know, motivation is like something you got to balance. You gotta know when to turn on the faucet and when to just, you know what I mean? It's like teaching people how to handle a line. You know, you might have them flowing like, you know, 30, 40 gallons a minute just because you want to get them build up their assurance, right? And then maybe 40 gallons a minute, then you get to 60, then you get to 80, then you get to 100, then you get to 140. You know what I mean? So so that they can learn, they can take it all in, you know. But if you show up, you know, on day one, and it's like, I don't know why you guys don't want to go out and polish the bell and the chrome on the truck every day with me, and then we'll go, you know, do 11 inspections and, you know, go run 16 miles, and, you know, okay, pal, you know, how about you quit drinking 8 cups of coffee before you get here and slow your roll. So I think that's important, and I think just bear with me one more second. I think one of the things we have going on a lot now is this. We tend to exacerbate stuff sometimes, right? Like, not every firefighter is going to suffer from PTSD. Somebody said that to me the other day. That's bullshit. You know what I mean? And we tend to give a little too much credence to these academic people with the alphabet behind their name. Just because the alphabet is behind your name doesn't mean you know a damn thing. You could be a blithering freaking idiot. You know what I mean? And we're letting a lot of these people into our houses, and, you know, they're talking to our people and convincing them that they've got problems when maybe they just needed to talk to Corley or talk to Josh, or, you know what I mean? And they would have been just fine. You know what I mean? But so I think there's a real, like, kind of weird place we're in right now, because, and I'm not saying all counselors are bad or a period, that's good stuff. And there's a lot of great ones out there, but make sure you're getting the right one, because there's a lot of people who are just in it for the freaking money. You know what I mean? Or they're just in it for some weird kind of personal crap. So I think when you do bring somebody into your house, especially when we're talking about motivation and leadership, make sure you've checked them out. You know what I mean? And I mean, when you're really bringing them in, you know, if you're bringing them in because it's some kind of, you know, mandated wellness thing, you know, get with the boss and say, boss, you know, how well do we know, Dr. Peppleton, you know, is he ever ridden on a rig? Was he in the military? Was she ever, you know what I mean? And if they're just 2 years out of college and they went to Brown or Berkeley, you know, duck. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that, right? Because we're talking about leadership and motivation. Because I see a lot of guys getting the love sucked out of them, you know. And I'm Irish, so I'm guilty all the time. And I remember when we used to go around the room after a bad call, and you had to share, like, oh, you know, why you were broke up over the accident or whatever, or the fire, you know. And guys would be there like crying and stuff, and like I wasn't feeling anything, but like I pretend I'm like, oh yeah, I was feeling guilty about not feeling bad. You know what I mean? And I wasn't alone. I found out from a lot of my friends. Yeah, I wasn't upset. We didn't like the fire. We didn't cause the accident. We did a good job. You know, I wasn't having bad dreams, but I said it because that's what the lady wanted me to say, or the guy wanted me to say. So it was just kind of weird stuff there, right? And I'm not saying that that stuff's not good. I'm just saying, again, don't ram it up people's tailpipes because you think they need it. You know, if they ask for it, make it available. But there's the Shiba. There he's coming in.
Yeah.
We love the Shiba.
Oh,
Bobby,
yeah, Frank's a Shiba guy.
Yeah, I got a Shiba. Shiba Inu. I love the dog. It comes down to the pendulum of injustice. There was a time where, that PTSD stuff and all that stuff was completely ignored and we were wrong there. And then sometimes it goes too much to the extreme. And I've seen a EMT throw up after getting a kid out of a pool. His name was Chucky, where the kid didn't make it while she was performing CPR. Completely unacceptable. And in New Haven, when we had a line of duty death, a firefighter who was supposed to be making the rescue of another firefighter was on a ladder with tears on. Completely unacceptable. We need to embrace PTSD and all of that other stuff, counseling, hugs, therapy dogs, whatever you want. We need to embrace it all, but after the call, not on the call. But to kind of get back to the focus of motivating people, some of the challenges of a boss is motivating the new and motivating the old. So when I got assigned as a lieutenant to the Island of Misfit Toys in New Haven, I had one of the most senior shifts, but I also had a junior shift. And one of the things I realized is I got to get these individuals comfortable to fail. I got to get them comfortable to fail at doing a drill so that we could all get better. So what I did was I didn't go for the reps and the repetition because I had a good, solid structural firefighting unit. What I did is said, hey, I'm going to do one between 10 and 12 your mine. I'm going to do one quality drill. I'm going to go first and I'm going to participate as the boss. You can fail without being a failure. And at the end of the evolution, we're going to critique it. And then if you didn't get involved in this one, you're going to get involved in tomorrow's or the next one. And what I found is even the old salt, the senior guys who didn't like to train, at some point, I got a phone call. I was vice president of the union. I'm yapping on the phone. They come in the office and say, hey, we're going to do a drill today. And I was like, what just happened here? So sometimes when it comes to getting the old and the young to buy into training, let them know it's okay to fail. You go first, do one evolution, critique it, and then go to the next day, and then go to the next day. And over time, that consistency will really bring up the tactical skill of your entire crew. And Josh can speak to this because I did the same thing with special operations. I didn't want to go teach these guys a full high angle rescue class. That they can get their own certifications. They do their own drills with their officers. But what I did as a training officer was I facilitated the drills that were difficult to facilitate. High tower crane goes up 140 feet. Hey, I'm taking every shift. We're going to do one evolution. We're going to lower the operator at 4 a.m. before he starts his day. And then you guys are going to go back. We're going to critique it. And that's it. One evolution. And it created such excitement and buy-in that they knew, okay, training division is going to call. We're going to do one drill every month that's going to be on something cool in the city. Josh, speak to both of that.
All right, Frank, people did complain because you woke us up so early, so don't get too carried away. All right, 4 a.m. Everyone was like, oh, what the hell? No, but to Frank's point, I mean, like having those drills, and it was like, we called it Sock Friday. Remember, Frank? We called it Sock Friday. And it was great because every Friday we had a different drill down there. And just going through the motions and working with your crew. I mean, that's one thing I want to touch on, like working with your crew, right? Like, motivation and leadership, people are going to see how you act and how you react to things when you're actually under like live conditions, right? We can train all we want, but in actuality, it comes down to those live, fire conditions, the live fire ground events, so to speak. You come back to the firehouse and, and it like, that's where that bond and that camaraderie is built, based on those things. But as far as drills go, like doing something like that, like what Frank had set up and what we had, I mean, it was just phenomenal because it built all those skills. And having us do that, right? Like having Frank set those up as a boss for him, that setting those up as a chief, so to speak, and not micromanaging, right? So he's not telling you how to tie figure eights. He's not telling you how to set up mechanical advantages. He's saying, hey, I got you this massive, structure. I'm going to have you guys, rappel, or I'm going to have you guys lower people off of this. Just do you. it just, it's very motivating because you get up there, you get to do the job, and it's like having a good leader is infectious. Having somebody that isn't micromanaging, having somebody that's really competent and loves their job, I think just trickles down. It's like anything else. And that being said, you don't have to necessarily be, a white hat or a white coat to do that, right? You don't have to be a chief to be a leader. And I say that to people all the time. You just do you. People will follow you. They'll follow it.
Hey, Bobby, you're going to love this because Corey froze, and then we'll go back to Corey. So we doing this high angle drill. So this is my 4th day doing the drill. The area director for federal OSHA shows up at 4 a.m. and wants to inspect our rigging. So he's talking to the operator and he's going, oh, they did this over the last month. So I convinced him it'd be great if he could get a photo. We had a photographer there of him being lowered from a construction tower crane that he could put in his office as the area director. So he bought it hook, line, and sinker. So we got him up there. The rescue lowered him down. He was so happy, he was beaming. So he's at the critique at the end and he's saying how much confidence he had in the New Haven Fire Department to lower him 140 feet. And he's going through and he's going, I had the confidence knowing that you guys do this all the time. And I said, excuse me, sir. And he goes, what's that? I go, this shift, this is the first time they've ever done this. I go, those were the other shifts. And I just didn't want you to see my rigging. And you should have saw the look on his face. I said, but you're on the ground. You're okay. And you got the picture. So, we always had a lot of fun, but I think that doing that one drill, if you go to a shift with old guys and new guys, doing one drill, even if it's stretching a line or forcing a door, doing something for an hour, critiquing it, and you as the boss going and not being afraid to fail in front of your crew motivates the younger guys, motivates the senior guys that, okay, we can do this. And that's how I won over those guys that wouldn't be won over on the island of misfit toys. Bobby, go ahead.
I think the other nice technique, along with just having a really nice special drill every month, which is awesome. I think that's a really super idea, is like if you get a guy who's 20 miles from home with a briefcase, you know what I mean? And especially if you get a guy that's like really squared away, like my dream would be, and I've been able to do it with a couple of guys, Bruno would come out and do stuff for me, different people. But my dream is to just like walk through the door one day down here and say, hey, we're going to do some forcible entry stuff. And I got my friend Bobby here to give us a hand. Bobby Morris. Yeah. Just
great.
Yeah. Like the
never heard of him.
Yeah. The Bobby.
Yeah. Never heard of him.
Right. If you've ever forced a door, you've always want to force that door just like Bobby Morris would force that door. You know what I mean? It's like, he's the pinnacle, forcible entry. And now Chris Minicelli, for modern day stuff, is giving him a run for his money. That's the other guy who's like, you talk about a guy who, so you find a rock star like that, like somebody that's just unequivocally the guy. Man versus Machine, obviously it's Gregory, you know what I mean? Elevators, Dragonetti. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket surgeon. There's certain Frankie Lieb, there's certain guys whose cachet is just like, right. Chris Green, when it comes to lithium ion, the list goes on and on of the guys who, walk on water on that topic. Right. So if you can pull in a guy like that or a gal like that, and you bring them in like Nicole from San Fran, right? You want to talk about positioning ladders in tight spaces. Nobody does it better than her. She's like the goddess of freaking ladder placement and uncontested, you know what I mean? Because she's proven it 10,000 times, you know what I mean? And so, I think that's the other thing that you can do with people, because people look at them like, whoa, because you could be fantastic at it. You could be every good at forcing an inward swinging door as Bobby is, but he's Bobby Morris, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I don't know how you can that, it'd be like trying to teach Corley Moore how to use the internet. I mean, it's going to be a long process. Now Corley's coming to us from his daughter's bedroom. He even had to change his clothes. Like he's got a whole different outfit on now. I'm completely confused.
Hey, Corey, I got a Chiefs question for you here too. So.
Corley can't hear us yet. He's just got his audio now.
Yeah, he's using a sidekick.
I know, and we are busting hard, man. Corley, you are like the brunt of the last 8 jokes, man.
Corley, take your mute off at least.
Oh, he's in the bathroom.
I say, is that a roll of TP?
He's got a roll of TP.
Like sandpaper. TP for my bunghole?
It ain't
I was
Charmin.
There we go. I had to switch to the phone. Completely lost the internet.
All right, Corley, I'm going to go to you with a question because anybody who's ever worked in a city or even a small department, everybody has a house of no. No house fund, no ketchup, no salt, no cable TV, no firefighters, right?
Right.
And that firehouse comes to your fire. And we see it all the time where how do you handle when you get the company and you're at a fire? We're not talking about a training situation. We're talking about at a structure fire. You got people trapped, you got an active fire going on, and you get that company that's not there. What do you do with them?
Man, we are, we're a 4 stations department. We have 22 people per shift. And so we're manpower limited. And luckily we have auto aid with OKC now, which just came about in the last couple of years. But manpower limited and task saturated, just like the American Fire Service everywhere. That's not a new thing at all. And I wish I had a magical answer that was just the perfect answer for it. Because, you can stick them on RIT. You try to put them in but that's not a low consequence place to put them. When they're needed, that's like the most important thing they could be doing. And so, honestly, proactive is the better, and it's just get the crew to meet the standard. I don't like the term minimum standard, but meet the standard of competency so that you can count on them to meet that standard on the fire ground. If it's at the fire ground, we're pretty much too late. And I know I'm blessed to work in a department where I get to know each and every person pretty personally, as far as the size. In some places, that's just not possible.
That's the benefit of owning your own fire department is that
no doubt about it.
Your name's on the door, everybody. Well, not everybody has that luxury. And one of the things I really love what you said, Chief, about don't put them on RIT, because when we need them, that's the worst place they could be. But one thing I hate is when the battalion chief or the deputy just kind of lets them just kind of Miranda around and not really do anything. And it's like, no, assign them a task with a high visibility and hold them accountable. I want you to stretch the line to the 3rd floor and report when you get there. I want a ladder up on every side of this building and report when each one's done, and then call them on the radio. Everybody wants to work for an outstanding fire department, but we don't need firefighters just outside standing. And it happens in every fire department. And I don't want them just going inside and standing on the stairs. I want them to actually perform a task and report back. So if you're a chief, hold them accountable. Also, I got a firefighter here on the rescue. So they're kind of like the truck company. They got some, they don't work with a lot of supervision. No, come on. You're kind of like the truck company where you don't got a lot of supervision, where you can motivate young officers and help them along, kind of get into that role of the senior rescue company individual to motivate some crews that aren't so motivated.
So two things just clipped in my head real quick. The first one is play. And Jordan Peterson's coming out with a new book right now about how play is the opposite of power. In other words, playfulness, right? That's why the really famous people hate it when you make a really good meme about them, and they're like, oh, damn, because it nails it, right? It just nails it. Like Elon Musk did a thing the other day with somebody who's been giving him a hard time with the Brokeback Mountain thing. Like,
yes.
It was freaking hysterical. It was just freaking hysterical. So play is really an important part of motivation too. Like, be joyful, happy, smiling. Like the drill of the month is cool because it's like, dude, we get to go play. You know what I mean? We get to play like it's the real deal and game day. The other thing I want to do really quickly too is I want to connect our people from YouTube who are chiming in. And I'm not on YouTube. I refuse to be on YouTube or whatever it is, or Facebook. I refuse to support that Zuck guy because I think he's a bad person. But anyway, little political commentary there. He's a bag of poop. Anyway, so comment from Future Firefighter. He says, and I love this because it's the 12-step method. I've been in a bunch of those 12-step programs. They usually get to like 8 or 9, drop out. But anyway, he says, structure fires motivate me. I know it's bad, but we love them. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, right. It's like, yeah. I'm Bobby. I go to fires. It's freaking hysterical. And then Ethan Schultz asks a very serious question, and you guys have just been kind of talking about that. From a leadership standpoint, how do you decide where you place your motivated people to bring up the whole company? And it's interesting. If you look at the effect of a really motivated, high energy person, I think Alan Bernasini is the best example. When he was in the Phoenix Fire Department, that place walked on water. I mean, they had quarterly seminars, they had this going on, that going on. And he did that for 20 plus years. I mean, he held that level of energy for maybe 25 years. It was unbelievable. When he left, and there's still great people, it's a wonderful fire department, but not that charismatic, highly motivated, kind of person. So Ethan, that's a great question. And guys, I'll throw it to you. What do you do with your super folks, and how would you handle moving around to help your folks who aren't so motivated?
Well, the kid, so the one person that wrote comment from YouTube, or sorry, the future firefighter structure fires motivate me, right? So when I was starting out, I had that same, I had the same thing happen in my head, right? I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I really love going to jobs, but like, people's houses, I'm trying to reason it in my head, because all my a lot of my family, they're not in the fire department, they're not in fire service, they don't get it, right? But I'm trying to reason it in my head. And finally, like someone said it to me and it kind of clicked. I don't know. And I use this all the time. Brain surgeons, right? They don't want people to have brain cancer, but they want to perform surgery. I mean, that's what it is, like they don't want people to have cancer, but they want to do their job. Firemen, we don't necessarily want people's stuff to burn down. We want to do our job. We want to get in there. We want to do our job. And motivated individuals, they want to do their job. No matter what it is, right? No matter what lane you pick, no matter what job you choose, if you're motivated, you're going to want to do it. So I kind of always, use that adage. But I think that's a great question. But one of the things that Frank was saying, about like placement of people on the fire ground and whatnot. Yeah. If you have individuals that are coming from the house and and they don't exactly like their job, they're not into the job, whatever it might be. If you can assign them tasks and put them to work, and even keep them in areas where you might be able to see them if you're the incident commander, right? Hey, maybe they can ladder all four sides of the building, right? Maybe that's something they can do. Maybe they can help with water operations, whatever that may do. But I find a lot of times too is that and this kind of trickles into like the new officer thing. These guys need to be told what to do, and if you tell them what to do, they want to do. Like when people look for that, people like they're eager for that. They want someone to tell me what to do. Like they're eager for that. And a lot of times guys don't give that. But the second you give that, the guys are like, okay, I can do that. No problem. We had a fire a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, and the engine stretched short. And he had a line, and the guy in the pipe had a line in his hand, and he couldn't make it up to the third floor, but it was auto exposing up to the third floor. We all know in balloon frame construction, it gets up there, it's in the knee walls and in the attic, right? So we know it's going to be a shit show up there. So I'm like, hey, we got to do something, right? So I say to the engine boss, I'm like, bro, take your nozzle, put it out the window, aim it up, and just start raking the eaves. I'm like, start raking the side of the bill, start raking the eaves, knock it down. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. So he starts doing that, right? So it slowed it down a little bit. We were able to make our way up there, but it's like stuff like that, kind of teaching the younger members. And when they get that confidence. And I think that the confidence that in turn leads to, being motivated at your job. When you're good at something, you're motivated about it. So.
Josh, one of the things that to answer this gentleman's question, Ethan, and I really appreciate your question, appreciate you tuning in today, of where you put your motivated people, realize as the leader and the boss, you may not have the right answers. So a humbling thing for me is at the end of each year, I would call everybody into the office and I would say, I want you to tell me 3 reasons why you love working on this shift and 2 things that if you could change, you would change. And a lot of people wouldn't play my silly little game. They'd walk in and they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. And I was like getting ready to just shovel that. It's gone. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then one guy walked in, big truck guy walked in and he goes, well, I got one thing I'd change. I go, what's that? He goes, why do you keep punishing the truck? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we always have an acting officer. He goes, you're riding the engine and we get an overtime person. You always put the overtime person on the truck. And at the time, the engine was going to, 6 medicals after midnight every night. And I was thinking to myself, well, my thought process was I wanted my guys and girls with me as a source of pride. But I didn't realize, I didn't have the pulse of the shift, that they were probably all complaining, saying, oh, we finally get a chance to get a break. And he's always putting the overtime person on the truck. And I was like, it really made me like think and say, wait, I can do better. And I started putting the overtime person on. So talk to your people, because as a boss, you're not always the one who can make the best decision. And I'm going to put it to this, and then I'll go to Bobby. We'll go right around the horn. When you're a firefighter, let's just take the nozzle debate. Okay. The smooth bore versus the fog nozzle. Well, when you were a firefighter, you might have had a preference of which one was great. And you were like, I wish the chief would listen, but the chief's not listening. Then you become a chief and you're like, whoa, when I was there, I wanted a smooth bore. So now I have all the right answers. I'm the chief. Well, no, you had the right answer when you were a private, when you were a firefighter. Break the cycle. You're not going to be using the nozzle. It's like Ford and Chevy. They both work. Passionate opinions on both sides. So let the end users make that decision of what they're going to use the tools. I remember a chief of operations trying to dictate where tools would go on a rescue truck. And I said to him, I go, are you going to be using the tools? And he's like, no. I'm like, so what do you care? Get buy-in from the guys and girls on the shift to where their tools come, and support them. You gotta get past that level. Go to Bobby, and then we'll go to Corey.
Well, Frank, you forget that as soon as you get multiple speaking trumpets, you also get a cranial rectal inversion. So and fecal myopia takes over all your vision. So you struggle. But to your point, I think that nobody knows everything about everything. I have to say, in my life, in my career, I want to hope I was right about maybe 30% of the time. Probably 70% of the time I've been flat out wrong. You know what I mean? And that's all the time. I mean, maybe I'm 50-50. If I want to be kinder to myself, I could say 50-50. But I'm wrong just as often as I'm right. You know what I mean? Which is fine. And I don't know that anybody else is any different. There are people out there who think they're right all the time. And they drive Chevys, but just teasing. I'm a Ford guy. So, but the point is that in our job, one of the first things you learn is humility. You really do. And we always say you're only as good as your last fire. You're only as good as your last podcast. You're only as good as your last whatever. And then the really important thing too is that we always say, one oh shit erases 1,000 attaboys. You know what I mean? Which is sad, but it's true. I think it was, I can't remember who said it, but they said that the good that a man does dies with him, but the bad lives on forever. Like they're remembered for it. And I think that, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I think a lot of people remember because they were like really, really good, But if nowadays, if there's one, if the guy had a pimple in the 3rd grade, man, they're going to cancel that son of a gun because, pimples are whatever. There's some kind of ist, there's some kind of ist. So pimpleist, you're a pimpleist.
Especially in the firehouse, nobody lets anything go.
Yeah. Oh.
It's going to go on forever. One little thing.
Oh, and the nicknames that you get,
Oh yeah.
The senator, Spock,
Yep.
burn him down, Bob.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. The chief of parking lot construction.
Absolutely.
It just goes on and on and on. And it's perfect though, because if we don't screw with you, we don't like you.
Yeah, they call me Swamp Thing. They call me Swamp Thing because I look like I came out of a swamp. I mean, I love that. I take that.
I like that.
That's a term of endearment.
And I wanted to say this the whole time. You may not know him, but his name's Joey Alvarez. You could be Joey Alvarez's kid.
Me?
Yeah, you talk like him. You gesture like him. He's a great guy too. He's the chief now. They just consolidated like 8 fire departments in Jersey, and he's the man now.
In North Hudson?
Well, North Hudson was one of the other ones. That's a Velo's joint.
Yeah.
But Joey taught for us for years and years and years at FDIC. He's taken a blow this year while he's putting together a new class. But he just did the rescue class last year. You look like him, you talk like him, and that's a huge compliment because he's probably one of the best damn firemen alive today, hands down. One of the best damn firemen alive today.
I hope I live up to that one. I got to meet this guy. I got to meet my dad.
Oh,
Bobby,
Anthony,
I like the intro to that. He goes, "They call me Swamp Thing," and then you're like, "Yeah, you remind me of the greatest fireman."
I knew that was going to happen. I love that.
yeah, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, Swamp Thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
perfect. But
My
the
buddy in
swamp is
DC
also DC, and you're out of DC.
My
So
buddy in
Swamp Thing.
DC. Yeah, my buddy in DC gave me that. He goes, I came out of the bunk room one day. Actually, I was probably not coming out of the bunk room. I was just walking around, just looking like a disaster, like as Frank would say, Joe shit the rag man, walking around. And he goes, Swamp Thing, that's you. And it stuck with me.
Well, as you can see by the way all five of us are dressed, we're all slaves to fashion.
No,
absolutely.
hold on a second. I'm usually here in a coat, right, in a collared shirt. But today, to show my nonpartisanship for fire engineering, I'm dressing as John Fetterman. So I'm stepping up, nonpartisan. You know, it's all about the policy. Hey, Corley,
Yes.
there's something that I think helped me be a better fireman, a better firefighter. And I'll kind of go back to John Kay. When I lived in a firehouse in Montgomery County, Maryland, any fire that we went to, somebody, and usually it wasn't the officer, usually it was one of the senior members or somebody who really had interest, would take us through the fire and show us what everybody did on the fire. Not the critique outside, that would occur too. But after the critique was over, somebody would grab you by the hand essentially, and you'd climb up on the roof with them on the ladder. They would show you, you would talk to the guys on the roof, what they did, why they did it. You'd go in, they brought this line here, they brought this line here. They were looking at this knee wall. And that really improved my kind of tactical vision of how everything goes. And I continued that when I got to New Haven. And I think that is so vital, not just the critique outside, but the actual walkthrough. Is that something that you guys do in the fire department you own?
Brother, it's a big part of the class actually at FDIC is the critiques and walkthroughs both, and how vital they are, especially nowadays, because we do not get the OJT, especially if you don't work in Jobtown, that is required to learn everything. So it's vital to get that walkthrough from that first in truck company, and see exactly what they saw, especially for our young new members who haven't made it to a lot of fires and aren't going to see a lot of fires. Comparatively speaking, suburbia, I am the American Fire Service is something I always say, because the majority of the American Fire Service isn't going to jobs every day. So the ones we do get, we have to absolutely squeeze every bit of experience we can out of those first due, second due, and those the people that did you know how it is. It's 10 minutes of fun and then the work starts. And generally speaking, when it goes good. But that walkthrough is a very big key thing to pass on that firsthand experience to people who did not get it firsthand. And I don't think there's anything that replaces it, not even helmet cams or walkthroughs later with video. Nothing replaces being there and saying, I saw this, I smelt it, or I felt this is the feeling I had, and this is why I made that decision. And this is why I might do it different next time, or this is why I think it was the right decision this time. Nothing beats being there, except being there, of course. So I think it's invaluable.
And I agree. And when I was the boss, when I was running jobs on the street, district chief and a division chief, and even as deputy chief, if I rolled out on somebody else's job, I would always run the AARs, after action reviews, on site. And because the next day, the flames got bigger, whatever, and people who weren't there show up. And there's nothing worse than a cat that wasn't there at an after action review, because they know the ending in advance, so they're looking at everything that led up to it critically. But the one rule I had was, I said, listen, you can comment on anything I did, because I was the guy calling the shots, right? You can say anything you want about what I did, no harm, no foul, but you can't dump on anybody else. You got to let them talk and try to understand why they did what they did at the moment, because what they thought at the time might be different than what we know now, right? Like, we might have thought the fire was on the second floor. Okay, well, it was on the first floor, it was on the third floor, whatever. We at the time Corley did what he did, he thought it was on the second floor. So it made perfect sense to him. You know what I mean? So we always have to keep that stuff in the back of our heads. There was recently a fire in San Francisco, real quick, where people were coming out of the balconies. It was like a 7-story or 8-story building. They're crawling down balconies to try to get away from the flames. So the first in crew figures, man, we're going to lose people. So they jump in the elevator to try to get up fast, right? and they go to the fire floor by mistake. Okay, so everybody's jumping on them for that. Slow your roll, man. Figure out why they did it, and you'd probably do the exact same thing. Because if they had tried to hump 6 floors to get to people, you could do it in the elevator 10 times faster. We all know that, especially with all their gear, all their stuff on. And so it's easy to throw stones. Oh, they took the elevator to the fire floor. Yeah, but wait a minute. Because somebody said to me the other day, the first report of any incident is always wrong. And I thought, man, boy, does that sound right? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's good. That's good.
Right. And he was talking about like when the guy said the Russians bombed Poland. No, it's actually a missile that went bad out of the Ukraine. And it's funny because I had 2 Ukrainian guys in my house today putting down tile in my bathroom. Great guys too. The guy was in Mariupol 2 years ago. He got out. He got out just as the war began. His house got blown up and everything. Great guy. So he couldn't speak a word of English. The kid with him could. But anyway, and God bless. You talk about Thanksgiving. You want to talk about a guy that's going to freaking celebrate freaking Thanksgiving? Fled a freaking war zone to get here. Amen. Right. So anyway, I think that when we're talking about leadership and motivation, to Corley's point and to Josh's point, if you can do a tailboard right there with the men and women who are there, clear the air and get everybody understanding why everybody did what everybody did. You know what I mean? Then when they come out, you know, if some lounge chair sniper the next day throws some, you know, lobs some hand grenade into the kitchen table to talk down, you know, your job, you can say, hey man, you know what he was looking at when he got there? No, you don't. Well, let me tell you, moron. You know what I mean? Because you saw the 15-second YouTube freaking clip, right? You know, Corley had to make decisions, you know, before that happened. You know, so I love that, man. I love AARs on site, and I agree with you. Helmet cams, none of that crap captures it. Like men and women looking each other in the face and talking about, man, I thought this was going to work. Okay, well, tell us why. You know, because things that are wrong are always wrong in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like my 4th wife, what a disaster, man. She was the 6th one. She's working out great.
You're getting it right. Josh Miller, weigh in on this because we're at the witching hour here.
Oh man, Bobby, I hope you got a good pension, man. That's 6 wives. Jesus.
I've been married to the same woman for 49 years.
Oh, God bless. God bless. That's something.
Congratulations, man.
And
So
just to not tell tales out of school, but she lets me see her in her pajamas. So I'm just
nice. That's all. That is, you know what? That's awesome.
It's fitting that we go to Josh because Bobby, you missed it, but his wife came on camera in the beginning before we went live, and I was like, "You
tell her the story about what I'm talking to you."
I said, "Josh married up, and you make bad decisions."
We all did. There's not a guy on this call that didn't punch out of his weight class. You kidding me?
I said to Frank yesterday, I'm talking to him on the phone. I'm at Tractor Supply, you know, doing whatever I got to do for the house. And Frank, we're talking about it, and I say to Frank, I go, yeah, Frank, I go, I married up, but you know what? My wife, she married down.
And I said, nobody says that. And that goes to the after action review. That goes right to the critique. Okay. Everybody puts the fluff on it when they talk. Here, he acknowledged the true reality. He married up, she married down. And I say this as a boss. If you're the boss and you're doing that after action review, I love what Bobby Halton said about, hey, you can throw it on me, but don't throw it on each other. I think that's a point you should take away from this talk today. But the other thing that I found very effective,
you got to throw it on yourself too.
You're the boss. Start off by saying what you would have did different in hindsight, given the information you have. And whenever I did that and said, hey, look, this is what I would have done different, it actually, you know, it's the first rule of crisis management. Get it out right, and get it behind you. You know, say, hey, I would have did this if I knew this, or I messed this up, and this is how we recovered. And that will also encourage your members to talk, and so that everybody can grow, because, you know, you can't cover anything up. The only person you're fooling is yourself. You make a mistake, you own it, you share it, and then you write an article about it for fire engineering and make sure everybody knows about it. So, Corey, we'll go around the horn for the last word here. And you guys were great guests. Corey, you go. We'll go with Josh, then we'll end with Bobby, boss.
Man, I loved it. I love talking about motivation with each and every one of you mentors. Josh, the first time I met you, but you don't realize how the internet, there's lots of downsides to the internet, but one of the great things about it is the relationships you can form with people you've only had passing acquaintances with at times and become actually tight friends with. And I think a resounding theme throughout today's thing was humility. Bobby talked about it, you talked about it, Josh talked about it, the ability to admit mistakes. That humility is so key to growth as a leader. And I think it's the key to motivating even the unmotivated. So that's really, I loved it.
Josh?
No, today was great. It was great talking motivation with all you guys. Corley, it was really nice to meet you, hear a lot of your input. And I've heard Frank so much I can't listen anymore. But it was absolutely great listening to you and Bobby. And I agree. It's everybody. The problem with a lot of guys is like you're not the smartest guy in the room, and you can't think you're the smartest guy in the room. And when you do, it's over for you. And I think that, motivation, obviously it comes from within, but again, just like anything in the fire service, it's infectious. You put it out there and, other people are going to pick it up. So I want to thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And the boss, give us our last words for this Thanksgiving week, and appreciate everybody listening to Politics and Tactics.
So I think it's important really quick. And Thanksgiving was actually started by George Washington, who I always have this picture of him kneeling. They don't know if it really happened, but it's him kneeling by his horse at Valley Forge and praying, or looks like Valley Forge, there's snow everywhere. So, and he started it as a time for us to be grateful for our blessings and to be grateful. That's why it's called Thanksgiving. And obviously getting to meet Josh today and knowing Corley and huge for me. What an incredible blessing. And I truly meant it. So the guy I compared you to, Joey Alvarez, is probably one of the most, I have knelt and prayed like that Washington poster with him in front of John Carney blessed us at a hot site. And we both knelt down just like that, like spontaneously. We're both hardcore Catholics, but so trust me, when you meet the guy, you're going to go, wow, he's a wow guy. The minute you meet him, he's like one of the most impressive dudes ever. And I'm grateful for him, and I'm grateful for you guys, and I'm really grateful for Frank. And a lot of people don't know this, but one of the most important American philosophical, political people of all time in America was a guy named Charles Krauthammer, who wrote several incredible books, was really at the tip of the spear for a lot of really important things. And when I met Mr. Krauthammer, he said, "Man, are you lucky?" He said, "You are friends with the bravest man I've ever known." And he was talking about Frank Ricci.
Nice.
And if people someday there'll be a movie about what Frank did. There'll be some film guy will figure it out, and they'll get somebody who actually like people would want to see. But to play Frank, and it won't be Eastwood. Trust me. Maybe the guy who used to do the pathological liar guy on Saturday Night Live, that guy, John Lovitz. John Lovitz could play Frank.
He definitely could.
And who I love. John Lovitz is a great, funny guy, wonderful guy. But seriously, when you're counting your blessings, and a lot of people meet Frank and don't know that, but the courage and the bravery that it took to do what he did in life, very few people have had the internal fortitude and the courage. And I think that probably Mr. and Mrs. Ricci, his mom and dad, were immensely proud. But I think if Frank ever, had to tell anybody why he was able to do that, it was because of his mom and dad. So I think, I hope that all of you that are listening right now, motivation's wonderful, on the job's critically important, but don't forget about your family. Don't forget about, Mrs. Moore and Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Ricci and all the little Riccies, wherever they are, Frank, all the ones that aren't accounted for, all of them. But
Accountability, very important.
accountability is very important when it comes to children. Just ask Tyler. But I mean, really seriously, those are the real blessings in life, and our gigs are great. But the people, when you think about the gig, really, and as an old retired guy, I can tell you, my buddy Sal just called me from New York, and he was my driver during 9/11. He drove me around. He was assigned to me by Chief Nigro when I got there. And so he drove me for weeks and weeks and weeks. and he just called me to say Happy Thanksgiving. But we talked about another friend of ours, John Paulson, who came to New York City with us to work at Ground Zero, and you know, just so grateful for the amazing. It's the people, you know what I mean. The rigs are iconic, they're artifacts, the institutions are wonderful, the mission is beautiful and blessed. But when you think about the men and women that we have gotten to know and hang around with, people like you guys and Frank Ricci, and I would insult somebody who I love, you know, by not mentioning them today. But, you know, there are some people that have been in our lives that, wow, just wow, you know. And so I hope all of you take a moment tomorrow and actually say a prayer before dinner, or maybe, you know, whatever you believe, you know, tip the hat and say thanks, you know, even if it's I don't care what they used to call the giant spaghetti monster. The atheist guys used to say the giant spaghetti monster. I don't care. Just be grateful. And I think part of humility, Corley, is just being grateful, you know, for everything we've had, for what we have. You know, as Americans, we always want something else. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at a motorcycle that I'm bidding on over my other computer screen. So we always want something else. But I think somebody once said true happiness is being happy with what you got. And we've got the blessing of knowing the finest men and women that have ever walked the face of the planet. And Frank, among those blessings, you're at the top of the list. So thank you for everything.
Undeserving of those comments. Like I said, I think of people like your sister and people like P.J. Norwood today who are giving their kidneys for, you know, another person. Talk about putting other people first. And every firefighter out there, and everybody in the military, every cop, every nurse, every doctor that's working on Thanksgiving so that we can enjoy the blessings that we have. Thanks to them. Bobby, as always, you know,
Frank,
thank you always for your guidance and grace. And Josh Miller, thanks for coming on. See,
Frank, can I say one more thing? Can I say one more thing? I
Sure.
have to, the first time. So Bobby, the first time I saw Frank, right? I was nervous I go, oh my God, that's Frank Ricci. I walked the other way because I was like, he was like a superstar, right? I'm like, there's Frank Ricci. I walked the other way. Yes, it was. I swear. But I got to tell you, I just want to echo off what you said. Frank has done a lot for me in my career. He was he has been a huge role model in my career. And it would be not disrespectful for me to not say, you know, how thankful I am for the stuff that Frank's done for me in my career. So I just wanted to put that out there. So Frank, Uncle Frank, I love you, buddy.
Uncle Frank, I love you too. We need more
Frank.
good firefighters. Hey, everybody, have a great Thanksgiving. That's it for Politics and Tactics. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for fire engineering. Thanks for Bobby Hall and for your guidance and grace as always. And have a blessed Thanksgiving. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all. Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Corley.